Hello everybody, and welcome to yet another student-produced Reading Through History knockoff video. My name is Aidan, and I'm a student currently enrolled in Mr. Peter Paccone's AP US History class. The focus of today's video is the topic of the Mississippi Steamboat. Now imagine yourself on October 20th, 1811 as a small-time sailor on the Mississippi River. Suddenly, you hear the deep bellowing of a boat in the distance. After only a few minutes, that small boat reveals itself as a behemoth that manages to outspeed you in record time. Unknown to you, this was the first Mississippi River appearance of the steamboat, a revolutionary invention that would change the 19th century and the course of US history. For some context, the first half of the 1800s, in other words, the period of time from 1800 to 1850, was a period starting with the election of the first Democrat-Republican president and ending with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and also the Mexican Cession. This period of time is remembered today as the Industrial Revolution, introducing several new and important inventions, such as the cotton gin and also the telegraph. But an often overlooked, although extremely pivotal invention in that period was that of the steamboat. It made transportation across waterways, mainly the Mississippi River, more convenient and efficient, which increased the flow of people, products, news throughout the United States. In order to understand how the Mississippi Steamboat worked, we must first understand the Mississippi River. Known as the second biggest river in the United States with a span of 2,318 miles, the Mississippi is a marvel of the natural world, flowing from Minnesota all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. It has many smaller tributaries connecting to it, and the major waterways made it easy to access different states and cities throughout the United States. The Ohio River connects the East Coast, the Arkansas River connects the Southwest, and the Missouri River connects to the Northwest. Now before we get to the invention of the steamboat, we must initially have prior knowledge about the steam engine. Although the first working steam engine was patented in 1698, it wasn't until 1864 where James Watt redesigned the machine for more practical uses. The idea of using steam to power a mechanism was a genius one, and it was introduced to America via steamboat in 1787 by an inventor named John Fitch. However, Robert Fulton is actually the one credited for successfully implementing the use of steamboats throughout the United States. He rode on the first official steamboat, the Clermont, on the Hudson River, traveling 40 miles from New York to Albany. With the ability to travel up and downstream the Mississippi River, the steamboat had access to the vast expanse of the Midwest. This increased the efficiency of transportation of people and supplies drastically. For instance, farmers could now increase their farm yields and export more crops to areas further away from them, without having to worry too much about the crops spoiling. By the same token, people no longer had to rely on their direct surroundings for resources and food. They could now obtain a wider variety and quantity of goods from faraway regions. Not only was the US market as a whole changed and expanded forever, but the physical landscape and the distribution of people as well. Many new settlements along the river were established. The introduction of steamboats directly influenced the Industrial Revolution, having many collective long-term effects, including a general increase in the standard of living in America and the growth of suburbs. Not all the effects of the Industrial Revolution were positive. Short-term effects also included increasingly harsh working conditions, workers being overworked and underpaid, and child labor until the subsequent laws preventing it. Other less direct long-term effects included a drastic increase in global wealth inequality between industrialized and non-industrialized countries, and an increase in exploitation of the environment to an unsustainable extent that remains one of the greatest issues of our time today. One of the most notable steamboats remembered today also existed at the time of the Civil War. It was named the Sultana, and it was known for exploding in the worst maritime disaster in United States history. It only had the capacity of around 350 to 400 people. However, due to the urgency of the Civil War, it carried around 2,137 people on the trip of the disaster, many of which were prisoners. The number of casualties of the disaster are uncertain, but it is estimated that 950 to 1,200 people had died. Now before we close off, I would like to take a look at an interesting recent story regarding steamboats, the rediscovery of the Sunken steamboat Arabia. This story within a story takes a look at a time capsule of the past, a boat which sank in 1856. The Arabia set sail from St. Louis on the Mississippi River after being loaded with around 200 tons of cargo. After turning east into the mouth of the Missouri, the Arabia began its long journey upriver. However, 6 miles west of what is today Kansas City, the steamboat hit a submerged tree trunk with enough force to flood the boat from the inside, sinking it, and now, over 100 years later, the boat has been rediscovered, interestingly, not beneath the Missouri River, but half a mile away from the river, under a cornfield. Due to there being no exposure to sunlight and cold air, the items in the steamboat are very well preserved. Of the items are probably even the world's oldest pickles, so wonderfully preserved that they are still green and edible, according to the excavator. Other items included several tons of china, children's toys, clothing, shoes, carpentry tools, and much more. 3 years later, in 1992, the Arabia Steamboat Museum was opened, advertising the 200 tons of treasure found in the boat once lost to history. Overall, the steamboat played a large impact in American history, starting from the Industrial Revolution to the American Civil War. It brought resources and supplies to the areas that were isolated, and the current state of America would not nearly be the same without it.